Well, let me go on. I'm from Lava, Amsterdam. My name is Hans, and it's been a heavy 1.5 day already so far. I just had lunch, so I think we should speed up a little bit. I'm going to talk fast, hopefully not too fast for the translator to give her a terrible afternoon. Design is not about beauty. I'm not going to talk about beautiful things and not beautiful things. Design tells a story, in my belief, and design tells a story in a visual way. So I've got about 331 slides in approximately 40 minutes. That is one slide per 7 seconds. So please wake up, we're going to go really fast. The topic is branding and identity design for cultural institutes. And Lava, I'm really proud of this, was voted European Design Agency of the Year, but that was already 2 years ago, and it's now 2012. So let's go on. What do? We do graphic design, we do branding, identity design, and all these words that we never know what is it about. So in Lava we sometimes have discussions, what are we exactly doing? Is it communication, is it branding design, is it identity? And somehow I decided to put all these words on top of each other, and then this happens. There's only one word remaining, which is sign. So somehow I think we make signs. We have a little corporate movie that I'm going to show you. I hope the sound is loud enough. Someone from the sound in? Yeah, he's there? Good. A bit louder.
Founded in 1990, we've always been at the heart of Dutch design. Much experience from small clients to large multinationals. We don't have them. Working with Lava means that you will always be connected directly to one of our designers. Before we start designing, we get to the core of the assignment. Therefore, we ask many questions, and you, the client, help us in this thinking process. Design is not art. No specific visual style. We always try to find a unique design solution. We have strong roots in editorial design. This means that we think in content. We are like visual journalists, if you wish. In a dynamic world with dynamic organizations, we need dynamic identities. We believe that identities need to be able to grow along with the organization. We work in teams. And since we are a team of 14 people, there will always be a backup for each project. Yes, we have a valet parking service too.
Okay, that was a short movie about our studio. So somehow we are about signs, and yes, we do identity design. And identity design is actually giving signs about your identity, about what you are, about what you want to be, about who you want to attract, about what your DNA is. And in this today's world, everybody wants to give signs. If you see in Hong Kong, everybody is shouting with visual signs, typographical signs, logos to grab your attention. And it's really difficult in today's world to get your attention in a visual way, I think. So, another short movie about identity design made by 2 students in the Netherlands is showing in a very effective way how many things are shouting for your attention every day, every second. This is a little film. It's filmed on a railway station, and the 2 filmmakers have taken out all details that were not designed, that were not for communication purpose. So everything you see in white is for communication purpose. You don't realize that in the daily streets we're walking through, that there's so many graphic things trying to grab our attention every second. Once a professor told me that a person in today's world sees more images in one day than someone in the Middle Ages in his whole life. Okay, so this point's clear. Brands are everywhere and logos are everywhere today, just around us. And we believe that a visual identity is more than just a logo. There's lots of confusion going about having a logo or having a visual identity. And we believe visual identities are much wider and much broader. So we talk about branding and identities. And what is it exactly? A short history about branding and identity design. Way back when the knights were fighting over Europe, they all had flags to identify themselves. And with their flags, they were running on horses to find the enemy, to fight the enemy. And just by the flags, they could identify enemies or their friends. Actually, we do the same in today's world, in sports. We try to identify ourselves with flags, with colors, with items to express our DNA to where we belong to. Even subgroups in our society try to do and to communicate through a dress code. It's all visual communication, trying to identify and to set yourself apart from the other. Albrecht Dürer and Yves Saint Laurent. As time between them, they're actually trying to do the same. The cattle in the United States in Texas is being burned with signs to mark them as owned by me or by the farmer next door. And then the Industrial Revolution came, and during the Industrial Revolution we begin to make so many products that the producers of the products have to distinct themselves from the others. And they begin to use design as a way to make one product look different or be different than the other. And this is how today's world, every supermarket looks like this. So, in the first generation of identity design, it's all about recognition and all about consistent. It's putting your logo there, having a red wrapping paper or blue wrapping paper, the same logo every time, just to identify. The second generation of identities is that corporations or organizations begin to develop a whole system. Like the big corporations that we know, they have a whole system of logo types, colors and typography to identify themselves. They make big instruction books, and even the Nazis did it. To identify the Nazi regime, they made a whole corporate identity. It's weird, it's true. Corporate identities, news channels do it. Just with big branding books like here, saying what type to use, what color to use, all classical ways to systemize the way we come across. Then the third generation of identity design and branding. And that's more about that the logo is not so important anymore, it's the whole visual language around it. It's the way we communicate in visual styles. One very good example of this is the Dutch police, designed by Dunbar, another design agency in the Netherlands. Actually, they designed a logo for the police, but the police is really famous and being identified by the style of the striping. And the style of the striping is so strong that it's even stronger than the logo itself. So it's a visual style. Even here you see that visual style comes in, being more important than the logo itself. And now I think that we have come to the fourth generation of identity design or branding, and that is your whole behavior. That is looking at the whole organization as one thing. It's not only the logo, it's not only the visual identity system, it's everything. It's the products you make, it's the way you behave, it's the way you talk, it's everything added together. It's your name, your visual identity, the product or the service you deliver, the language and how you speak, your interior, your attitude of the people working in your organization. So everything together becomes your identity. Apple is a very good and maybe the best example these days. It's just a logo. Nobody cares about the logo. It's the products, it's the way the human interface works, it's everything together. And that's why, in the end, when there are products of Apple, it's become a religion and people go there. Why is that? That's not because of the logo, that's not because of the typography, that's because of the whole brand. The whole brand has become so attractive that people run to new products. So, one of the mistakes that's been made very often is that people think that branding and identity design is only for commercial purpose. And it's not for cultural institutes, it's not for non-profit organizations, but I believe it's useful for everyone, as we're going to see. So, a brand to me is someone's gut feeling about a product, a service, a person or organization. It's your feeling about a brand. It's not something you can describe maybe, but it's your feeling. If you see a brand or an identity, you have a good feeling or a positive feeling about all the services they deliver. It helps people to make choices. And what we all want, if we have a museum, is that we attract people. That we want people to choose to visit our museum today. So we have to do something to express our identities, to attract the audience. And again here, look at this. Everybody is trying to do that. So when you do that, as a museum or an organization, you have to do it in a different way to attract the audience, because everybody wants to attract the audience. So you have to do it in a clever way, and to think about all your values and your DNA. So back to the topic of visual identity is more than a logo. The way to describe it is probably like this. What is this? Does anyone know what this is? By who? Why do we know this? It's not written anywhere. There's no Van Gogh written on any place. It's because of his visual language that we can identify this painting, because he has such a strong and specific visual language that it identifies his images immediately. And if he makes another image using the same visual identity style, you identify it as a Van Gogh. You could say that this is his logo, his signature. So a logo is a signature, and a visual identity is a rich system where you can make a variation of visuals. Same for this one. We all know Lego. We don't know it actually by the logo. We know it by the building blocks. This is the DNA of the brand Lego. And the good thing about having a strong visual identity is that you can make everything with it. So with Lego, you can make a car or a house. Whatever you make, people will identify it as Lego. So it has a large flexibility, much more than using a logo only. So a logo is a signature, and a visual identity is expressing values of an organization. As also shortly mentioned in the little corporate movie of our studio, is that we believe that a visual identity should be a flexible and a dynamic system. The reason for that is that in many historic cases, an identity was made by a design agency once, and once it was made, it was being delivered to the client in a big book with all instructions of how to use it. You know, and it says, there's a lot of rules there. It says not to use the logo bigger than this size, you always have to put it in the top left corner, you always have to do this and that. It's really a book of laws describing how to use the logo. To us, that is a very solid, not dynamic system, and it's not suitable for today's world. Because you, as an organization, wants to operate flexible, and your identity should be ready to do so with you. So let me go through a few cases of our studio that we did to express a little bit of how it can work for you. This is one identity we did for an organization called 7 Days of Inspiration. 7 Days of Inspiration was a nationwide innovation thinking week. And during the week, there were various programs on innovation thinking in the Netherlands. It was innovation thinking between schools, between organizations, between universities. All various topics were being touched in that week. So we decided to make an identity. Okay, logo, 7, the coming together of two elements, and we had type. Now usually this is where it ends. This is like logo, word, nice, we can print t-shirts, letterheads, and business cards. But we believe that you can make an extra step. You can add content to an identity. Now, because this program was having more sub-programs, we added content on the top corner of that coming together. So this was what was about biology, one thinking event, another one about energy, another one about, I don't remember them all anymore, but people were free, so all the sub-organizations were free to redesign the identity and making it belonging to them, to their part of the program. So we got a whole system of flexible use of that 7, which made it a more dynamic identity, and people begin to like it, begin to use it, and it expresses the values of the whole program in a better way than only the use of the 7. National History Museum. This was a big thing. I'm here together with a colleague, Valentine, sitting there in the front row. He was one of the former directors of the museum. This is a story of a museum that we all dreamt of in the Netherlands to be realized, and because of budget cuts in the government, it wasn't realized. But let me tell you how we started the project. And Valentine, please no questions during my talk. The whole concept being developed by the directors, our clients, was to develop a museum that expresses the story of the Netherlands. The objective of this museum was not to contain a collection. because the collection of the history of the Netherlands is in various museums already existing. The National History Museum in the Netherlands was a museum with one task: to tell the story of the Dutch history. Now, the name of this museum was National History Museum, but the ambitions of the directors, the vision of the directors, was also to make this a new institute, to make this a new way of storytelling, not to open a building like this and just have a museum open the doors 9 o'clock in the morning and people come in. No, they wanted to have an institute that finds new ways of storytelling, that goes out to the audience, that finds audiences in new ways, by all means, by using media, television, newspapers, education programs, I mean, events throughout the Netherlands. So it's more than just a building. These kind of buildings you can buy really cheaply in Egypt, in Greece these days. But you see, so the name actually, National History Museum, is like, you know, you can see it in gold type already there. It's one of those classical names and classical institutes. So we decided to try to find a new name which was ready for branding the real story of what the whole institute was about. So looking at the name, it's a bit strange. It says national, but it doesn't say from which nation. It says history, okay. It's also containing prehistory, but that's a kind of little discussion. And it says museum, which is okay, but exactly not what the institute wanted to be only. So looking at all the other institutes, they do more or less the same. They have a 3-name thing, like the British Museum, Deutsches History Museum. It all has the same kind of structure of the names, and they're all classical institutes. One's better than the other, but it's a classical way of opening a building, having the logo there, and trying to get audiences in. So we advised them not to use one of those classical names, and also not to use abbreviations, because abbreviations are terrible to remind. This is a few museums in the Netherlands, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't touch emotion, it doesn't tell you what it's about. It's just an abbreviation of National Open Air Museum, Jewish History Museum, Amsterdam History Museum. But by using an abbreviation, it doesn't touch people's heart. It doesn't express the values of a museum. And this museum had the ambition to be maybe the most modern history museum in the world, to be a brand that could easily compete with one of these classical, great famed institutes. So we came up with this name, saying INNL, which means, very simple, in the Netherlands. INNL could be a brand name for this new institute. And the good thing is, because it's language, it says INNL, you can put any word in front of here to express what's going on. So you can say Russians INNL, or Peter the Great INNL, to make the brand come alive. I'm going to show you a short movie that is in Dutch, but hopefully it will make a point. It happened in NL. This is all various history words that were going on in the history of our country. Not only in the Netherlands. Turn the logo, it's about our colonial past. Netherlands in. We cooperate with other institutes, so we could easily link the identity to other brands. It's a dynamic identity. This is our target groups. Students, elder people, the restaurant, food in and out, drink in and out. And yet it says everyone. So this is the 1-minute movie to express some of the values of that brand. And this could have been the basis. Now, the identity is not the goal. The identity is just a tool to tell the story. And we came up with some ideas to express, using this identity, to express stories. Of course, we can have all these items, like we just had in the movie, all the history points and the people and the famous people from the past putting next to that logo. One of the first ideas was when you have a business card. A business card is a moment you are in contact with someone. And why not use every moment that we communicate as a museum, why not use every moment to tell a bit of the story of the history of the Netherlands? I mean, every moment of communication could be a moment of telling a story. So we said to everyone, go and find someone in the past of the Netherlands, in the history of the Netherlands, with the same name. So this man working there, his last name is Skilp, and he found another Skilp from earlier, who has a little history story. So now 30 or 40 people working in this museum had business cards, and on the other side, a little story of the history was being told. Now, by having this idea, we were trying to find all other means of telling stories. For instance, when it's Valentine's Day, it's about love. Why not having free cards in cafes, telling little love stories of the history? So we make love cards, just free cards in the pub, Valentine's Day, and we have little love stories from our national past. Thinking about all details, can you imagine if you go to a wardrobe down here, putting your coat there, and you always get a number, right? So when you get a number, putting your coat away, on the back side of that number actually is a year. So on the back side we tell a little story from that year. So again, these are some concepts of using all communication items to express and to tell little stories, to make the brand actually come alive. So this is the gentleman's toilet. When you go to a gentleman's toilet, of course, we're going to have images of gentlemen, famous gentlemen from our past. So even on the toilet, we don't leave you alone. Coffee. So when you finally want to take a coffee break and you go to the cafe of the museum, coffee, there's a shitload to tell about coffee in our history. It's about our colonial past, it's about slavery, it's about Indonesia, it's about the 17th century, the golden age of importing the coffee. So even on a simple coffee cup, we can have a little story around the coffee past. So these are all ways to get people into the story of the Netherlands. Same with beer and the whole thing of locations. So with a mobile phone you go through locations in the Netherlands and you can find your stories on the spot where it all happened. One of the ideas that was never realized, which was a nice one from one of the museum directors, was to do the National Portrait Gallery along a highway. So you have a portrait gallery when you're driving 120 kilometers an hour. Identifying locations. And also in the whole visual communication, in the branding, in the advertising, in the promotion of exhibitions, we try to use a new visual language. These are t-shirts made of old colonies where we have been active as the Netherlands, telling the stories. This is around New Year, so instead of sending someone happy 2012 or 2014, we can send people cards saying happy 1631. And on the back side we have a little story, a happy story from 1631. So all in this brand is making stories come alive, making stories simple, accessible and come alive for people. Just on the communication means, Valentine can talk for hours and hours more what plans he had for the whole museum itself. This was just some ideas on the communication level and using the communication tools in a richer way. So this was all cancelled by our wonderful government who quit the budget 2 years ago. So hopefully one day it will re-budget it again and we will be able to make it and to realize it. Another branding thing I'd like to announce now, it's quite kind of nice to announce it here because it's still under development, is that we were asked to develop an identity for the Holland-Russia year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but in 2013 Holland and Russia will celebrate a cultural and economic relation year, friendship year. And for that year we were invited to join a competition. And actually we won the competition, and the result of this competition I'm going to show you now. We're still working on details, but in general it will be something like this. What we really wanted, maybe the same as in NL, we always try to look at the story. What is the story of something? Of course you can make a nice logo of the Holland-Russia year, you make something look nice. But also you want to tell a story, you want to find the real reason for what it is, what it's about. So we were, we decided to do what this year is about. The year is about friendship, so let's work together with our friends. So we went to our friends here in Moscow, Zoloto Group, design group, this is Igor, and worked together with them, developing it. So we were looking at some common DNA. What is the DNA of the Netherlands? What is the DNA of Russia? And still, what is something that is very easy to use in our visual communication? What is something that will appeal to a large audience? Because the task is to attract large audiences, to make large audiences aware of that this is going on. So basically, and maybe more people would have done so, we were just looking at the flags and realizing that they look quite the same. There's not much difference in our flags. And looking closer is actually you see that the colors are on the wrong place in the Russian flag, or the other way around. And how does this all happen? This guy, Peter the Great, went to the Netherlands to study about boat building. You all know the story much better than I do. And he saw the Dutch flag that he really liked. So when coming back to Petersburg, he just took scissors, cut the whole thing apart, really, and just rescheduled the colors. So this is the common story of a very visual nation symbol, a flag, recutted and repasted by Peter the Great. So we kind of liked this way of doing, and we thought, why not make that the identity system? So we played with the flag, same like he did, and we just made a pattern out of the flags. And the thing is that this somehow is becoming abstract now, but still it appeals to Russians and it appeals to Dutch people, as if it's their own. So it belongs now to Russians and it belongs to Dutch people. So it's a visual language that can attract both audiences in one time. So playing with that visual language, even more than Peter the Great did, he just changed the bars of those flags. We just played a little bit more, and we could develop the whole visual system just with the simple idea of using the flags. And from that, we developed typography. So it's going to be something like this. This is still under development, so I'm going to show you some. This is really a preview, actually, of what it's going to be. And then the same visual style, the same visual language, the same approach of cutting, recutting, and repasting is being used in the visual communication as well. So it's one simple idea, one simple story that both of the sides will like. And we use that as a basic idea. So communication for posters, exhibitions. So sometimes ideas can be really simple and still belong to your personal DNA. We have to change the picture here. He's still in charge on our side. We don't know for how long, but he's still in charge. Actually, we did a presentation 2 weeks ago, close to the Kremlin, and they asked us to change the image for the presentation, so we did. So the whole visual style can also be adapted to animations in a simple way. Sound? Okay, that's that one. You have to use the concept all over. So the whole idea of cutting and putting things together again, that's the basic idea, is that we believe that the cutting and rearranging could be a nice idea also for a series of exhibitions. Can you imagine that we could do exhibitions with maybe 2 furniture designers on both sides, one from Holland and one from Russia, and they work together by cutting and repasting each other's work. So it's just ideas that came out from the simple idea of cutting and rearranging. And cutting and rearranging, I would like to explore much more for some ideas and for museums in the 2013 year. So we're working on that one. Another short story that I'd like to tell is about I Amsterdam. This is city branding. This is how a city can deal with branding. And the question to us, to our studio, was how can you make the identity that we already have for the city, how can you make that more dynamic? How can you make it to come alive? How can you make it to appeal more to the citizens of Amsterdam? Because at the moment it's this, we didn't design this. This is about 10 years old campaign. It's said I Amsterdam, and it's been used for all the formal city branding of the city. And I don't know if you've ever been in Amsterdam, but they have made these big type all over the city. And especially tourists really like it to be photographed. on top of these logos and types. Now the point is that in the last 10 years, this brand has developed as a tourist brand only. It's just a brand that tourists like to be photographed with. But Amsterdam wanted to expand on that. Amsterdam wanted to use this I Amsterdam campaign for a wider audience, to use it also in economic trade missions, to use it to attract foreign investors, to also use it to their own population, that people feel more belonging to the city. So they asked us to think of a concept to expand from traditional I Amsterdam campaign to a more emotional and wider and dynamic campaign. And we made a little movie, so sound please on, to express this. So this is the traditional way it always was. And then we made this little movie. More sound. We showed it to the mayor of Amsterdam, he had tears in his eyes, so that was kind of nice. If you see any similarity between the In and Out film that we made, it was due to that In and Out film that they asked us to do this movie to expand the brand of Amsterdam into this dynamic brand, which is now being used in trade missions all over the world, basically. Okay, so far so good. So it's all about design and branding and make things look beautiful, which I'm not about. I am about making things work, making things, set things to action. So most of you would probably like to know how design can work for you. Because we like to make beautiful branding, we like to make effective branding, but you would like probably to know how it can actually do something before investing in branding or in identity. So I put together a little case that I think can prove that identity design can really work. And you would probably think, if you see cases like this, some people do sometimes think, oh, it would not work for my organization, or we don't have the budget for things like that, you know, all kinds of things. But sometimes you can make things with limited budgets, or with just great ideas of great cooperation. And the one thing that I'd like to show you is the proof of great branding that it really works. And it's a Russian case. It's a case that we did here in Moscow. And it's the Moscow Design Museum. I'm very honored that Alexandra Sankova is here on the front row, sitting here listening to it. She's one of the founders of the initiative of the Moscow Design Museum. And good design can do a lot for an initiative like this. It all happened, the museum is even not open yet. There's nothing there yet at the moment. There's lots of ideas going on, it's not open yet. But let's go there. How it all started, 1 year ago. I was here meeting Alexandra at a conference. And one evening in a cafe, correct me if I'm saying it wrong, I keep this not so long yet. One evening in a cafe, she said, we have this plan of a Moscow Design Museum, and do you want to help? Do you want to help getting this done? Do you want to help doing identity design? Do you want to help our branding? And she told me this story. There was no freedom in Imperial Russia, but there was design. There was nothing in revolutionary Russia, it was only design. There was no sex in the USSR, but there was propaganda and design. And now, today, there's everything in this city, in this country, but there's no design museum. So that was kind of challenging, and I liked it that she wanted to set up, with a group, just a design museum, an initiative that I really liked. Now, if you start a project like this as a foreigner, you begin to ask yourself, why should I do it? I mean, should this not be done by a Russian design team? I mean, it's your design heritage, why would I help? And she said, no, please do, because we want to have it be an initiative, an international initiative, and we don't want them to fight. Because if we're going to ask one design studio from Russia, the other ones are being mad, and so please help us out. We don't want to have fights here in Moscow. So I was really honored to be asked for this, and I have a great admiration for the history of Russian design. I did my thesis on the art school on Rodchenko, and have seen lots of examples of Russian design that I really like. So I was surprised actually that a country with such a huge history on design doesn't have a design museum. So we decided to have a look at the heritage of Russia. And to me, design is in the middle of art on one side and the crafts on the other side. And design somehow floats in the middle of art and crafts. So looking at the one end of art, it's this, Malevich's Black Square. And crafts on the other side is maybe the Matryoshkas, to me. So it's art and crafts, and design is somewhere in the middle between the two. So looking at this, the first idea for the identity was to take type, because it's a design museum. We thought, let's take type, it's nice, it's a Cyrillic type, D, design, and the D for design. And then the simple idea was, why not having all those Ds, putting them each in the other one, same like the Matryoshkas, black and white, same like Malevich, so we have a concept. So we thought, yeah, it's actually nice, let's try to send this to Moscow and to show it. And we thought this is going to be a good idea, and she said, no, I don't like it. So she didn't like it, rejected the project, and we thought, okay, we have to go back to the sketching table. And we went back to the heritage, and we studied a little bit the patterns of this glass, the crystal glass that we really like, and found out that it's an original Moscow thing, the patterns, the very scientific, mathematical patterns. And we used these patterns to build the identity system, which were actually in this way. So we start playing with these elements and trying to develop graphic symbols that was cheap to use, just black and white, easy to use, but all based on the heritage of those graphic patterns used for the glass cutting. So, and by using these patterns, we could make an unlimited list of visual symbols. So we made some type, and from that type, we could use all those various symbols together with the type to make the identity come alive. So basically, this is the basic shape of the visual identity system for the Moscow Design Museum. And from there, we developed the visual identity on the business cards. So unlimited possibilities. So immediately from the start, the museum isn't even open yet. Immediately from the start, it's a dynamic system that is flexible to use, it's very easy to use, it doesn't need lots of instruction PDFs or big brand books, so simple, easy and effective. Now the good thing about this museum, the whole concept started not as a museum in a building. The concept started as a museum being in a bus, having a bus that could drive around Moscow and doing pop-up exhibitions or temporary exhibitions on various locations. So the whole idea of the identity being dynamic and the museum itself being dynamic was kind of appealing to us. So these are some examples of how the identity system could be used. And then exhibitions, and then we're talking about this bus, the whole bus concept. And one of the first ideas that we had is that a bus is really small actually for having exhibitions. So we thought, why not having the exhibition space on the outside of the bus? Because you have windows on the inside of the bus. The windows become your windows to look through exhibited objects. And we just put cases on the outside of the bus to exhibit objects inside. Now, of course, this was rejected, or we didn't even propose it, but this is not officially allowed to make a bus wider in the streets. So this was not done, so we did some other sketches, and you can then have, when there is exhibitions going on, you could do your street graffiti advertising when the museum would have an exhibition on a specific location during a week or so. Make a little promotion film for the identity. Sound please. Louder. About 1 month ago, there was a press conference announcing the idea here in Art Play, and people were working to put the type in the room and to have the bus there, and it was a really nice room where lots of press attention came to this whole initiative. And the design community was filmed and were promoting the whole idea of having finally a design museum in Moscow. So this was a presentation, everyone there. She was really happy in the end. And we had a website, and still there was nothing. Still there was no exhibition. There was nothing to announce. There was just a plan, great plan, lots of energy, and maybe a bus. And we had a website, and we were launching the website and the whole story to get attention, to go to sponsors, to tell the story, to go to the press. And then I was lucky to have a talk in the Design Museum in London just after that. And in the Design Museum in London I announced that Moscow was going to have a design museum. And they so much loved it, because also they were in love with the history and the heritage of Russian design. So they loved it, and they decided to send out Twitter messages about the initiative of the Moscow Design Museum. Now, when the Design Museum in London is twittering something, it goes to more than 500,000 people. So more than 500,000 people were now aware, everywhere in the world, design-minded people, people who like design, were now aware that in Moscow there was a Moscow Design Museum initiative. So by the twittering, we got lots of attention of what is the plan, can you tell us more? People began to start blogging on it, and lots of attention was there. A very famous magazine in the United States asked us to send materials about what is it all about, and we're also promoting it. So it was on their blog and their website. They had a design, specifically design blog. And this design blog was read by 400,000 followers. So lots of people, just by a good plan, lots of initiative, lots of energy, and a good branding and identity system, was just attracting all of the attention. Now, suddenly Russian and Dutch newspapers were writing about it, and international branding and identity blogs were writing about it. And there was lots of attention in all kinds of magazines. Russia, lots in Russia, international, some American ones, some English ones. So lots of attention. Even the Design Museum in London was asking us to keep them updated about all the next steps, because they want to be friends of this museum. So now, if you Google, I did it yesterday, Moscow Design Museum, it gets 14 million hits on Google. This is what design can do for you, this is what a good plan can do for you. So if you collaborate as someone who has an idea, and you collaborate with designers in a good way to promote a brand, to have the right DNA, to express the right DNA, it can do a lot for you. So this was only in 2 months. So in the last 2 months, this is going to be the start, and hopefully it's going to succeed to attract sponsors, to get the funding right, to get the building, and to get everything done. This is the last week's Facebook page. It has a plus 104 people talking about it, and a plus 38% people seeing it. So we reach, in 1 week, we have a 38 plus in reaching people, and we have a 104 plus reach in people actively talking about what is going on. Still, there is no museum yet. We haven't done a single exhibition yet. It's all of the buzz, it's a promotion, it's to get attention. And of course, with this attention, the whole event is going to happen, the whole thing is going to happen, it's going to succeed to attract the sponsors. So, the museum isn't open yet. And where are we now? Actually, we are now very close to having a bus. The bus designs are ready. This is the bus. It's going to be worked on today. It's finished on Wednesday? Finished on Wednesday. So the bus is now being painted. Hopefully it's ready on time with the identity on it. And the result of all of this was possible because it was a very strong focus between the client, who understands the need of branding and identity design, and Lava, together with the directors of the Russian and Moscow Design Museum. So this, I believe, is a very successful case to see what identity design can actually do for you. So it's all about storytelling, and it's all about getting things to the right DNA, matching your organization in the best way. Okay, this is my talk tonight. I'm going to talk about toilets. So this is it. Thank you.
У меня вопрос такого характера. Какие рекомендации вы дадите российским организациям культуры, музеям, агентствам при выборе дизайнера или агентства на, в общем, вот такие дизайнерские работы? Как выбирать, как ориентироваться в вашем сложном профессиональном мире? На что обращать в первую очередь внимание?
I think that selecting the right design agency to work with. Better, yeah. Selecting the right designer to work with is to find someone who understands your organization. Don't try to select a design agency just because you like the portfolio, because you like a visual style. Try to find a designer that is interested in your topic, that is interested in your brand, and really understands what your ambitions are. And of course, it is about style and it's about visual power and stuff like that. But try to invite people and select the best match.
Ханс, тогда у меня вопрос. На какие важные вопросы вам отвечает организация культуры, да, или там какой-то культурный проект, для того, чтобы вы смогли правильно ответить вот, визуально, да, на запрос? Какие важные вопросы вы задаете при разработке бренда?
Okay, the last question is the most valid, I think, because indeed, when we do an interview with the client, we ask, like in the film we said, we ask many questions. We just spend like maybe 2 hours, preferably with the people who make the final decisions, so with the directors. We ask many questions about what are they about, what do they think they are, what do they want to change about their brand, what do they not like about their present existence, what is the whole thing. We interview them. So by a long interview, sometimes 2 sessions of 1 hour, sometimes a 2-hour interview, we just ask questions, and we be really honest and really fair. So it's not like we ask polite questions and just listen to the answers. We confront also people from an organization with maybe a different way of thinking. So it's really a conversation that is the starting point of the
For example,
process.
What kind of questions?
What are you doing? What are your ambitions? Are you happy with what's going on now? How do people see you? How many people are coming every day? Do you think there's more people able to come every day? Why are people coming to your organization? All that kind of questions. There's loads of those questions, and by having the conversation, we have new ideas of more questions. So it's really to get to know the brand. It's really to get to know what it's all about. Even if an organization thinks that they know exactly what they are, then still there are many points to be touched about what they really are about.
Да, спасибо. И еще вопрос, да, Елена Слабук.
У меня вопрос. У нас такая же история, как с музеем дизайна в Москве. Мы в Республике Карелия создаем центр дизайна. Дизайнеров на территории нет. Заказа на территории нет, но мы понимаем, что это единственная возможность прорыва для территории, создать дизайн, центр дизайна и вот как бы продвижение бренда территории, создание другой среды. Что вы посоветуете в такой ситуации? Спасибо.
No, well, actually, it's about finding someone you can partner with, and maybe you can be more specific on the question exactly.
Ну, у нас нет своей дизайнерской школы, и вот даже вот те дизайнеры молодые, которые появляются, они уезжают. Ну, мы ставим задачу, как бы, чтобы появилась творческая среда, чтобы изменился имидж территории, что у нас очень сильный университет, очень сильная программистская школа. И вот даже вот эти специалисты, они уезжают с территории. Мы хотим какие-то проекты, какие-то действия, чтобы молодежь оставалась на территории. У нас версия, мы посмотрели на проект, пермский проект «Центр дизайна», изменение, привлечение внимания к территории, и у нас есть версия, что реализация подобного проекта на территории Карелии нам поможет.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know the case of Perm in detail, but I guess it can be a way of doing. Design on its own is never a solution. It's part of a whole set of activities, like organizing events, like organizing other ways of attracting people. And design can be a way to express that, to communicate that, to feel people wanting to belong to that? It's a too complicated question to answer in 2 minutes, I think. Anyone else?
I have a question. What can you say about what have you seen in Moscow about Russian design now? What is strong and what is weak?
But it's also a place to invite foreign design exhibitions or foreign designers to participate in new exhibitions, to be told. So this is going to be an innovative place where design is part of our daily life and will be shown to the public. So it is a mixture of local Russian things and international things. And it's up to the curators of the museum and the directors to further develop this, but it will certainly be part of expressing proud of Russian design and also contemporary Russian design. I don't have a full overview of what's going on. I cannot give you a full analysis of what I think is going on in Russia. I don't know all the details of it, but I've seen really amazing works being done, especially since we're working together with Zoloto Design Group. We're now partnering and getting deeper insights in what design is about in this country.
Я хочу сделать уточнение относительно музея московского дизайна. Мне показалось, что вы не просто разработали для них дизайн, а что вы разработали для них коммуникативную стратегию или же концепцию.
Identity design in itself is not a solution, it's a starting point. And it's a starting point to start communicating, to start finding your network, to start finding your sponsors. And we are the type of agency who will influence that set of work also. So we expand our work indeed to communication strategy as well.
То есть это была именно коммуникативная стратегия, да, для Московского музея?
Yes, so far.
В рамках их готовой концепции. В рамках их готовой концепции или с концепцией вы им тоже помогли?
But sometimes it's very hard. I mean, the better your cooperation with the client is, the more unclear is exactly who's doing what. I mean, that's a good cooperation. So you begin to discuss, you begin to test ideas. They sometimes call us and say, hey, we've got this idea, what do you think? Or we have some ideas and we just call them and say, what do you think? Shall we do this or that? It's really close cooperation. And that's why it's an effective case until now. Because it is a case of really listening to each other and expressing ideas. Don't be afraid for ideas. Put all ideas on the table. I mean, you need 20 ideas, maybe 20 bad ideas to find the 21st really good idea. So don't be afraid for ideas, and that's what we are not in the cooperation of the Design Museum. Okay, thank you.